Get it? Okay. All right, I will return from the recess and we'll continue the agenda. Item G is something new that we started recently. Board members share a moment of pride. And I just wanted to mention, because the referendum passed since the last meeting, we probably all would have that on our list. So I'd like to encourage you, each of you, don't feel like you're being repetitive. If you have some comment about the referendum, feel free to talk about that, and then anything else for the moment of pride. I never remember from month to month where we start, so you want to start?
Why don't you start? You never start, there you go.
Okay, that's fair. So, all right, well, again, with the referendum, just an outstanding result, and even exceeding again what we did with Friendship, exceeding what the company that did the survey for us estimated that we would be at. I think we were clearly above that, and the community responded, and we're going to have a lot of work in the next few years, but we're going to continue to make the facilities great for kids and for staff on that. So I had a couple other quick ones. Pancake Day, it's so nice to see all those people from our community and the surrounding community come into Friendship and see the beautiful building and be a part of that and know what we're doing out here. And then we also had the opportunity to go to the high school musical, which was awesome too. Enjoyed it very much. Very talented students. And what surprised me was some of the lyrics. Some of the songs were long and difficult lyrics because they're telling a story, I guess, too, as this thing's going on. But the kids just clicked. They never missed a beat. I never caught anybody pausing or stumbling over a line. They had it down good. So that's a lot of work, and I give them credit for that. So that's all that I have.
I'm supposed to do one now.
Yeah. I'm out now.
Just walk away, John.
I have the Oriole TV team, great video that was shared with us last week. And I just, the part that I really enjoyed, it's just really important, I think, for us to slow down at times and just really appreciate everything that's going on in our district, because we have a great community, great school district. So I wanted to thank them. And then to the referendum, this kind of goes into it. I had a chance to have a conversation with a community member that just moved here 3 years ago, and now their kids are in FLC, and they want to just let me know how welcoming the team has been at FLC to their kids. Their kids are super nervous, and now they don't want to leave the school. So I think that's pretty cool on the culture that's being built, not just at FLC, but throughout the district. And then you stole some other ones, so I'll say it for time.
So the referendum, of course, I also went to the high school musical, and it was fantastic. Because the pit band is always near and dear to my heart, so I don't think they always get as much credit as everybody else. They're all phenomenal, but I have to give kudos to the pit band because they're awesome, and I know you were part of that.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I have others, but that's good. So it was a great experience.
Vicky, were you in the pit at some point in time?
I was.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Yeah, right.
Keyboard. I did a lot of stuff, but yeah.
The behind the scenes, the amount of work that's done in that area is amazing. So.
Yeah, I actually have to say two things. From the referendum, I just want people to know that we appreciate it. We take it very serious. We know that the community is making a commitment to us, and we're going to do everything we can to make changes and make things better. And I think we're starting with the new strategic plan coming out soon, and we take it very seriously. We appreciate it very much. And Lori and I also went to the play, had a great time. It was a wonderful thing, and the kids did great. So it was a good evening.
So to piggyback off of Steve, I'm part of the North Fond du Lac Optimist Club, and the Pancake Day was a huge success. And I can't tell you how many people from outside of the community came in to this facility and had positive comments. And then also the staff here to work with, the kitchen staff, the maintenance staff, members of the Optimist Club commented how great they were and how accommodating our staff were towards them. So all in all, it was a positive event for the community.
All right. Thank you. All right, item H, Friendship Learning Center representatives going to share for us. Nice, so you're on.
I'm Rachel Kowalczyk. I'm the school psychologist here at Friendship. And this is our SEL team here, our social emotional learning team. We are here to highlight 3 of our students who have been working really hard in that social emotional learning. And they're going to share some of the learning that they're doing this year that they prepared. So we have Kane, Ryder, and Wyatt with us today. So, Kane, do you want to kick us off? You want to go start? You want to start? Oh, I'm gonna ask the questions like an interview, and then Kane's gonna share his answers that we came up with together. Okay, ready? All right. What helps you when we problem solve with you?
I get to say what is getting in my way. That helps my teacher know what I am feeling. I also get to know what my teacher is feeling too. This helps us solve problems together.
How does it feel when you solve a problem with your teacher?
I feel good. I feel like I'm going to keep solving more problems together. I don't have to do it all by myself. We are a team.
What are you most proud of this year?
When I got the Growth Mindset Award, I got it because I have worked on growing my brain. With my friends' help, I still make mistakes sometimes, but I know that I have people to help me.
All right, next we have Ryder, and Ryder and I worked together today, and we talked a little bit about what we call the regulation station at FLC. So you jump in if I'm getting any of this wrong, okay? Because these are your words. All right. So I asked Ryder to tell all of you what the regulation station is, and he told me it's a place that you can go if you are getting upset. And then I asked him why he likes it. Do you want to read that part? No? Okay. It helps because, he likes it because it helps him get calm. I asked him what one of his favorite things about the regulation station was, and he said the swing and the slide. I asked him, when does the regulation station help him? And he said, it helps me because it's okay for me to be upset and I can be alone. And then we went into a lot of details about the rules of the reg station in case any of you wanted to know a little bit more about what some of those things were. So when they first go to the reg zone, they get to talk a little bit about how they're feeling, what zone they're in, right? Yep. And then they only can pick how many choices? Can you figure out how many choices? Yeah. So if it's a 10-minute break, you get 2 choices, and if it's a 5-minute break, you get 1 choice. And then when it's over, and what happens when the break is over? You get your, and then go back to class. Go back to class. So, anything I missed? All right, I will pass these out for you because Ryder worked really hard on this, so we'll show you later.
This is my friend Wyatt, and he's just going to talk a little bit about our small groups.
Hi, my name is Wyatt. I'm in a group, and I learn how other students react when they're worried and how we can calm down by taking deep breaths. Also, in my group, we made a craft I would like to show you. Can you pass This is my shield, and it helped my teacher and other students get to know me. On the shield, I drew the outside, a pumpkin basket that represents Halloween, and my family. These are things I like. Thank you for letting me share my shield with you.
First of all, thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here. It really means a lot. Hey, can you do me one favor? Can you point to one person in this room that's helped you out here at FLC, or just somebody in this room that's helped you out on the regular day? You just point at someone that's helped you out? All right. And I think that's a really big thing. Do those people help you out a lot here? Yeah. And what do you, if I could say like fist of 5, meaning like 1 being it's okay here, 5 being awesome at FLC, what number would you give between 1 and 5? If you could raise up your fingers right now. 4, 5. It's okay. I'll give you some sec. There we go. There we go. Awesome, guys. Thank you. And thank you to the staff of FLC. I mean, the care, compassion, support, the daily. This is why we get to do what we get to do. It's one of the most amazing professions in this world, and we're very blessed to have like amazing people standing behind these 3 awesome individuals and many more. So thank you to all you do every single day. Appreciate you all. Yes.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you like, but feel free to scoot out.
You have something.
Be really good, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay, then moving on to item I, the Horseman Student Council representatives, Aiden Fowler and Nick, and I don't see him.
No, Nate won't be joining me today.
Okay.
But it's honestly crazy to believe that we're already 3 months into school. It's like it flew by. We're definitely at the high school level looking for this next month filled with festivities, and that actually goes between all levels of orientation, really. For my student council report, Horseman's High School started the month by deciding their Secret Santa faculty partners. Each year, the student council participates in this event between the council's members and teachers across the school. Students give faculty members a gift each day starting December 19th, and on the final day, December 22nd, the students will reveal themselves to their choosing staff member and will more than likely receive a gift from that individual. Additionally, within the student council, each year we host a turf wars event. So homerooms from each grade level compete against each other to raise money for our several families that we adopt within the district for the holidays. Last year we were able to receive over $1,500, and today was actually our first day of the event. We raised $27.06. Though we started out very slow, we tend to see large traction on Thursday and Friday. Because we have an incentive, homerooms tend to keep their totals a secret and bring in everything Thursday and Friday. And that's when we really see this, see that number spike. So if you'd like to donate, let me know. My homeroom would really appreciate that. Additionally, within the high school, National Honor Society's membership has been the true mark of the student's achievement for over 100 years. But it goes far beyond a report card. By empowering championing and recognizing well-rounded students, NHS provides schools with a value-based framework to elevate a culture of scholarship, service, leadership, and character. Our chapter regularly participates in reading to the kindergartners, assisting with the Salvation Army Angel Tree event, where we pack gifts for those in need around the community, around the holiday season, and many other community service events. It is similar to Key Club. We really instill leadership and community service, but it's through different ways. I'm not quite sure if you've seen, but every year the high school hosts a Big Buck competition. So previously, Mr. Pat Colby hosted the Big Buck competition, but because of his departure this previous summer, Mrs. Light has taken on the role of the competition director. The Big Buck competition is open to all Horace Mann students and staff. The competition runs between the dates of September 17th through January 8th, and it's open to any student and staff who uses a compound or crossbow or a gun for their hunting. The deer must be legally harvested by the participant. Every entry received some goodies from the following sponsors: Camel sunglasses from Family Eye Focus, 3D archery shoot certificate from Lakeshore Bow Hunters Archery Club, camel hats from M&M, and Fleet Farm donated hats, mugs, sunglasses, and stickers. The final winner this year will win a trophy. And then for the department I'll be talking about for this month is our technology education department, specifically our Project Grill program. So Project Grill of Envision Greater Fond du Lac is a project-based learning experience for high school students that strives to develop a strong future workforce by positively highlighting careers within manufacturing. The Grill portion of this title stands for Growing Readiness in Learning and Leading. While the program was developed in Sheboygan County, Envision Greater Fond du Lac provided the program for areas school districts since 2008. Project Grill teaches students all the steps of taking an idea from a concept through production to the end result being a fully functional grill. The design process and fabrication of these complex grills takes an entire school year, during which each student group is mentored by both their technical education teacher and a manufacturing partner. The program will culminate in May in the parking lot of Festival Foods in Fond du Lac for the annual unveiling event. During this event, students will display their fully functional grills with the opportunity for their team to win the Best in Show and/or Community Choice Awards. The program also offers 2 academic scholarships each year for the winners announced during events. So the school year has honestly gone up to a pretty great start, I think. I've heard from our students as well that they're really enjoying themselves at the high school, and they're looking forward to more to come throughout the year. So does anyone have any questions?
For the Project Grill, what students or what groups get to be a part of that? Is it just like the welding class, or is it expanded beyond that?
So I believe Project Grill is actually a class in itself. Because it's an all-year thing. I'm pretty sure, but I can double check and get back.
Hey, and I know from past experience, you've been pretty politically savvy and involved in the community and around, and without getting into any individual races or that, I'm just curious if the high school had any type of program for students who have turned 18 to register to vote or to get them over to vote.
So actually there were 2 instances where we had, I believe it was someone from the community come in to register our students that are 18. That happened during lunch periods. There were 2 opportunities for that. And then our history teacher, Mr. Tom Lothy, really brought out that message of you need to vote. You don't need to vote, but we would love if you voted. And then it was really publicized within our school.
That's good. I know in the past, there's been different movements like that, so that's good to hear. So,
Any other questions?
Any entries yet for the biggest buck? I mean, that's what.
Yeah, let me pull it up.
I'm just curious, like, what are we looking at here?
So far, Owen Miller, he's a sophomore. On October 8th, he was able to get a 7-point.
Okay.
Austin Foyt, 8 points, 13 3/4 spread on October 8th. And Mr. Forsyth with a 10-pound buck, November 6th, and it was 200 pounds. And then Christian Gonzalez, he is a sophomore with a 10-point buck, 190 pounds on October 9th. And this will be updated, after last weekend. And all of these results are posted on a board in between the locker rooms in the high school.
anything else? Well, thank you, Aiden, appreciate it. All right. Item J is approval of the October Board of Education meeting minutes for the regular meeting, October 24th, the special board meeting of November 7th, and the special board of canvassers, which was held on November 9th of this year. Any corrections or changes to any of the minutes? Okay, all the minutes there will stand approved as printed. Item K is the treasurer's report.
The cash balance on hand on October 24th was $223,169.74. Receipts for the month were $89,873.20, and transfers in from investment accounts was $2.2 million, for total receipts of $2,513,042.94. Expenditures for the month in total were $2,296,640.13, which left a cash balance on hand of $268,402.81. Bills to be approved tonight are pre-approved checks of $1,522,811.07, and board meeting checks of $453,229.14, for a total of $1,976,040.21.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion to approve the list of bills.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion on the bills? All right, then roll call.
Matthew,
Yes.
Hawk,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes, Jaeger,
Yes.
Beckerman.
Yes.
All right, item L is the clerk's report.
Correspondences, we have none, but donations, we have quite a list. We have $500 for BAMS, the Nurturing Nest from AirTech, Jim and Sarah Price. $1,500 for Backpack Buddies from the North Fond du Lac Optimist Club. $50 for Backpack Buddies from Denise Station Brooks. $1,000 for Backpack Buddies from All Tools NBT. $1,800 Service League grant to be divided between Nurturing Nest and field trip planning or funding. Dairy Queen on Johnson Street owner Manny Patel donated dilly bars to students and staff for his daughter's birthday. $500 sponsorship of promotional products for the district's health and wellness initiative prizes, giveaways, and adoptive family donations are coming in. That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Item M is the citizen comment section of the meeting, and I'll open that 7:26 for any comments from citizens of the district who want to address the board. Hearing none, I will close the to some comment section at the same time. Item N, superintendent's report. First item is celebration of fall athletics and preview of winter athletics by activities director Jake.
Just stop.
We're
good. Yeah, so we had a pretty active fall. So boys cross country took second in the conference standings. We had 2 first teamers, which was Nate again. Is that right? Yep. And then Kaysen Schroffnagel. And then second team was Caleb Logan. And then honorable mention was Ariel Paz. So that was just boys cross country, which we had 6 points away from taking first this year. So sorry, Sarah, I didn't have to bring up that. Girls cross country, we took third. We were 4 points away from taking second. We had first team Kelsey Forsythe. Second team we had 3 Madeline Meredith, Lauren Stepbacher, and Krista Sable. And none of those were seniors. So future's looking good for them. Moving on to football, we had honorable mention, Jackson Klodowski. So that's awesome. So junior, he's returning. Joseph Grohl, senior, and then Ethan Seda, senior. So they did well. So moving on to boys soccer, we took third in conference, and we had 3 first teamers: Brian Gonzalez, Christian Gonzalez, and Luke Field. And then we had 3 honorable mentions as well. And there was so first team, there's 2 juniors, 1 senior, and then Angel Perez is a senior, honorable mention, Walter Ruiz, senior, and Max Boss, senior. So we're losing some seniors there, but overall they took third. Volleyball, we took 6th. Megan Pilot was honorable mention, senior. Lily Roberts, freshman, honorable mention, and Allison Knott, freshman. So we had some growth there coming into the volleyball world. New coaches for the entire year, but he's our new strength coach and powerlifting coach, which is Isaac Destrodi, teacher's son here. So he's doing a really good job. Just started getting teams into the weight room this past couple weeks. So wrestling's going 2 times a week with him. Girls basketball have been going 2 times a week. Boys basketball starts next week, and I'm meeting with volleyball and football at the end of this week to get them started. So right now we're trying to get some smaller teams in there and then see if we can fit bigger teams in there and then go from there. But that's the plan by the end of the week for weight room and fall, to get fall actively into the weight room in their off-season stuff if they're not in the sport. And then our winter sports moving forward. Wrestling was in there today. They have about 13 to 15 kids is what I counted on the team this year. Girls basketball, we have enough for 3 teams, so it's awesome. So we'll have varsity, JV, and JV2 levels. And then we're actually like only the second team or 2 teams out of the entire conference to have 3 levels. So that's really cool. So that program's growing. And then boys basketball has 2 teams. So hopefully we can get some more stragglers coming out to fill at least a full JV team. But yeah, work in progress for there. So Nate Wallace is the varsity coach for basketball, Doug Forsythe for wrestling, and then Gary Keel for women's basketball. Other than that, it's a work in progress and we're moving forward. So we got some work to do, and we'll get there, I promise. So yeah, it's good. It's fun.
Did you say is Isaac Testrodi, is he doing powerlifting or?
Yeah, he's the powerlifting and strength coach. So he's doing both. So yeah, they're actually our biggest team. So yes, so he is in season right now. Their first meet's not till December, end of December, and they have 3 meets the whole year, and then they go to state if their weights are high enough, obviously. But he's got about 34 to 36 kids, I think, right now out. So I mean, that's as big as the football team. So some of those kids are out right now just to do the paperwork. But yeah, what signed up was 34 to 36. So that's really cool. So he's got a full weight room in the afternoon, just with 1 team.
How often is the weight room open, Jake?
Monday through Friday right now with Isaac. Basically, right now, it's if a coach signs up with them, he's there. So it's open till 4:30 for any public, for our kids, and then they sign up with him. We're trying to get teams to sign up in the morning with him as well. So I'm hoping our biggest team, which ideally would be football, would get in there, or track and cross country would be big teams too. So it's just we have 6 racks and that can fit 24 people. So we got to really plan that out as far as how many people can fit in that weight room. So that's what Isaac and I have been working on the last couple of weeks, and who can come in when, and then working with the coaches. We had our first coaches meeting 2 weeks ago. So I had 10 out of 11 head coaches there. So that was, I think the only coach that wasn't there was our baseball coach. So we had a good conversation, kind of getting our mission statement going for that, what we believe in as a staff and what we want to do here at North Fond du Lac. So it was nice to get everybody's ideas and what we need to do.
Is that like a monthly thing?
That's,
Jake, or?
Yeah, that's going to be a monthly thing. So in December we'll have another one, and then moving forward every month after that, just to kind of keep everybody on the same board. And I think you learn from coaches talking to each other, and we have a lot of coaches that aren't in house, so getting everybody's ideas and perspectives on that is nice. And it's fun to sit back and kind of let these coaches talk, and I get to learn and see what's working and what's not working. I think you can learn from other coaches too. So yeah, the first one was good. I think it lasted. We had to cut it short, and we could have probably been talking for another hour or so. So I think it was almost 2.5 hours. So yeah, there's a lot going on. So yeah, it's good. Moving forward, and we'll keep growing. But that's it for sports.
All right, thank you, Jake. Matt, do you want to do your list through there, or do you want me to announce each thing, I guess?
It doesn't matter to me, Steve, whatever you'd like to do. I'm
Okay, well,
very
we've
flexible.
done it both ways over the years, so.
Go ahead.
Well, go ahead, and number 2 is the state report card sharing presented by Adam Broughton. I forget your title right offhand, but.
Yeah, great to see everyone. Thanks for having me here tonight. And I don't know if someone has control of that, but if you want to go to page 50, I don't know how much you've looked into some of the resources you have, but I try to provide you with a one pager that kind of gives you the background info. Yeah, it's going to pass all those reports.
Okay.
So that can be a good mini document for you to review after tonight. You do have a copy of all the report cards, which are out publicly, so you could see ours from the DPI website or anyone else in the state if you wanted to. And then I also gave you a one pager of just our district scores and just a written summary. So that's again, just we'll go over some of these pieces, but that's just there for you that you have that maybe you've seen already or are going to be looking at later. So if you want to go to that one more page down, okay. Dr. Mino. And basically, so kind of repeat of what we've talked about for some of the last bunch of years. We have this report card, but there's lots of resources out there. So if you go on the DPI website, you're going to find maybe 20 to 30 different documents to help you understand the report cards. There's also a great 50-page PDF on just the calculations. I usually take one for the team every year and kind of peruse that. Thankfully, this year wasn't any changes. So when I looked at some of those algorithms and things, I'm like, all right, this looks about the same. And definitely, I cannot explain all the calculations and what goes into those, but kind of talking on the people, I get the understanding of that. So kind of beyond today, if you want any other resources or more information, definitely reach out. I can send you that info. But I'm trying to give you the kind of the need to know version. That's what this one pager is for. And then we'll kind of look at our district report card and kind of talk through what you might want to look for if you're going to go into those report cards. So our report cards have changed almost every year since we've had this going on. And these are our state report cards. So this year, there wasn't too much change beyond the fact that we have kind of that COVID gap year in there. So that's still within the data, which is just something to note. Those report cards are out for public schools, charter schools, and most private schools now are starting to have a report card as well. We have district reports, and then we have a report for each of our school buildings. So we have 5 reports total for our district. The district report is seen as one big K-12 school. Sometimes people think, ooh, that's an average of our school reports. Nope, it's kind of seen as its own school for the for the sake of the reporting and how those calculations work. And then as we dig into the reports, you'll see it's still on that front page is that overall score, which is given a rating out of a 5-star scale. And that scale, if you remember, changed last year. Kind of long story short, the state kind of made it easier to get a certain number of stars. I think maybe they thought, hey, let's make things look a little bit better. So, we'll kind of mention that when we go in. And then those are out, like I mentioned, publicly, and then we have to put those on our website as well. So we'll have that link there. Typically, we link right to the search engine. That's what most districts do, so they can find it if they want to. And then also worth noting is this is our state report card. We also have a federal report card, which will be coming out this month securely, or excuse me, in December. So in a couple days here will be that time. And we'll get that securely. That has not been out there for the last 2 years, so that might be new for some of you that are new on the board. But the calculations and how we look at those are a little bit different, so I just want to kind of mention that too, that we'll probably come back to like we had in the past and talk about that federal report card, maybe in that, in February issues when that becomes public, so. Again, something else to just is worth noting is that those state report cards, if you look at that next heading of those data points that are using calculations, we're looking at just our state assessments, and you can see those listed there, and then varying weights on those assessments. So sometimes things are weighted more for an assessment than other things, and then also it's multiple years. So the report card might say in at 21, 22, but just know it doesn't mean that that's just data from state reports from 21, 22. We actually have data points going back to 2017 on our report card. So kids that are no longer in some of those buildings are still impacting the scores in those calculations. And then with student attendance and graduation, that also is different weights for different years. And there's also lag data on that. So it's the first data or the most current data point is always 1 year lag behind. So I guess long story short with that, someone asks you what data points are there, lots of data points from lots of different years. So, and then this was new a few years ago, but there are some informational data points on the report card that don't count for that score, but they're just meant to be informative. So that's just our enrollment, student demographics. A new thing last year was that every report can have its own personalized narrative on it, so we can, again, kind of craft that messaging on there, and so you'll see that in our reports. And then for the high school, they added the post-secondary, just reporting the numbers of students in advanced courses and some of those courses that lead to college or career readiness, and then also our arts course information. So that would be students enrolled in music classes or art classes or theater. So that's just reported on there just for information. And then again, we'll dig into a report card next. That's kind of your cheat sheet for, hey, what goes into each of those 4 areas. But we'll look at the, kind of use the district report card just to kind of take a look a little bit deeper, but you kind of have that information condensed for you there on those 4 overall areas which make up that overall score. And one thing, I guess, before we look at our district report card, I just point out some things. With our state report cards, everyone in the state can win. So every report card in the state, it could be 100 out of 100 points. When we get to the federal report card, that's where they're ranking every school in the state where they want to find quote unquote schools that did not win and identify those schools. So for our state report card, every single state could be every single school or district could be a 5-star district if those calculations net to that. So this is something to keep in mind, which again will be a little bit of the opposite when we look at that federal report card. So I don't know, Dr. Mino, if you want to flip into that front page of the district report card, it's going to be up. And I'll kind of use that to model from and then open it up for questions. But I just wanted to show you a couple things that I think are a good way of looking at this information. And then again, we'll take some questions or talk through anything that you're interested in. And the district report card is a little bit longer because it has just some extra information summarizing some of the information from the school. So typically what's kind of out there with report cards is that most people don't look beyond the front page. So this is the front page of our, actually that might be the high school one there.
Is there another one on? I missed it.
But most, again, people in the public look at the stars and say, wow, you're a 4-star school, you're a 5-star school, or, oh my gosh, you're a 2-star school. And we kind of have that being, if I get questions from the public or if I get comments, it's mostly about, wow, 4 stars, way to go. And, typically people don't look beyond that first page, but we'll kind of dig in a little bit further there.
Or just, I guess, one comment just on that particular topic is, I shared your pain, I downloaded that 50-page thing.
Nice. I saw you not your head there. It's a fun one, right?
Read through it. And I mean, to me, what's important in here, and we'll get to that later, is the achievement scores, because that's comparing head to head, district to district, without any weighting factors going into it. But just to give you an idea on how they're curving this thing, in my opinion, when they rate the students below basic, proficient, and advanced, my assumption going in was that basic meant you were at grade level, but it doesn't. So the definition for basic is there's a partial understanding and ability to apply knowledge at grade level, so it's just a partial.
Yeah.
Proficient means you're adequate. So proficient means, in my mind, you're at grade level.
Yeah.
So we've got 44% of the districts in the state are rated exceed expectations. But if you dig into the data, 62% of the students are below grade level. So they're basic or below basic is 62% of the kids. Yet the state is telling us that 44% of the schools exceed expectations.
Yeah.
So.
And that's where, I have some concerns with, again, I think it makes people feel good at times, but.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, as we get into this discussion, I'll let you go back in just a second, is we've got to figure out what's really going on in order to make a difference. We can't look at this 4 or 5 stars and feel good, because it's basically meaningless in my mind. I mean, you need to look at the achievement scores to see how you're really doing.
Yeah, and I'll show there are some great comparisons in there too that actually can compare. And I want to point those out to you, because then it gives, I think that's a great context for this. So, and I'm gonna stand up, and just because I can point things out, that's all right with everybody?
Unfortunately, there's not.
So you can just go, to any of the front pages. Okay, and it's, again, the front page is going to look the same for every report card. I just want to, again, point a few things on that. I want to show you those comparisons that give more context. So, yeah, this is perfect. So, again, this is just kind of informational. Here's where our statement is that we are able to craft, so we can change that and edit that year to year. So if we scroll up a little bit, this again is typically what most people look at, or if I hear comments at all, it's, great that, or I heard about this other score, that, could you believe this district is 2 stars? And it's like, oh, there's more maybe to it than that, but sure. And then, like was mentioned, there is a weighting here on that state scale, or the state report card. So that's based on our free and reduced poverty rate, and for everyone. So if that rate is above 35%, they start to weigh that differently. So the 2 that they start to weigh differently would be, like was just mentioned, the achievement and the growth. So we're going to get, quote unquote, more points if we have students grow because of our economically disadvantaged number. The piece, we try to talk about is, and the rationale from the state is that, hey, students that are in poverty don't have certain supports that kids that are non-poverty have. So there's some research out there that says for every student in poverty, they have access to 1 book, or excuse me, for every 200 kids in poverty, they have access to 1 book. So that alone all of a sudden says, oh, those students are at a disadvantage before they even get to school. So we like to talk a lot about, hey, we're going to flip some of that data on its side. That's what we want to do, because we believe there's nothing wrong with our kids, and our kids can do it. And I'll highlight some of those pockets of excellence where we've done that, where we kind of bucked that trend of that poverty rate and did really great things for kids, which we want to obviously magnify and have that occurring sequentially, so that we can see that achievement, like was mentioned before, start to really
have those scores go up. So again, just know that you'll see some different weights based on that, that score in there, and that changes some of the weights of the other areas as well. 70 is the new cut score for 4 stars. It used to be 73. They changed that 2 years ago. So we have some buildings in our district where we've talked that, hey, you need to really think about getting 5 stars, which would be 80 points. Most of these numbers on the report card are not really tied to anything. So this 69 isn't a percent. It's not like 69% where, oh, is that an F or is that a C? Nothing like that. It's not a percentile where 50 would be your average percentile. So it doesn't mean that, oh, this is above average because it's 69. Nope, it's just really an arbitrary number that the state puts out based on that 50-page calculation document that then gives an overall score, which correlates to the number of stars. And that holds true for all these numbers here as we start to look at, here's those 4 areas that get that overall score. It's not an average of these 4, it's based on that weighting. And these numbers here too, 91 doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, that's 91%, that's an A. Not necessarily, but I'll show you again that context of, okay, how can I put this number in context compared to other districts like ours or other like schools. So for these areas, one piece I like to look at would be that for achievement would be how the school or district compares to the state average. So that thick line is us and our achievement. The thinner line is the state average. And it's broken down ELA and math. Trying to think here. So like was mentioned before, there's those 4 proficiency areas: below basic, basic, proficient, and advanced. We get points on this if kids are in those 3 top levels. So if they're below basic, that lowest level, they score no points on any calculations on here. If they're basic, which that's not good enough for our kids, we still get some points for that. If they're proficient or advanced, which means they pass that assessment, we get more points for students that score that. So they look at that for ELA and math of those students that were tested in that school, and then again, come up with a number. And then we can see that for context, we can see, okay, how do we do compared to the state? And definitely when I look at that, not okay for our students and not something that, that we think is indicative of who our students are. In my opinion, it comes down to some of our adult behaviors as far as instruction goes and things that we can do to kind of flip that script. And another piece just to add about that too is we've had those pockets of excellence with achievement where we've had grade levels in math or ELA at the state average. So this might tell a story of, hey, in this building or in this district, here's where it is, but it might not tell that story of last year we had a grade level at the average, state average for this, or above the state average, or very close to the state average. So sometimes that doesn't show that, or on the opposite, and maybe it doesn't show we had a grade level way below, worse than this shows, below that state average. So sometimes that's hidden in here. And that's where too, when I kind of look at this, I kind of know how this is going to flush out. And we've already started to talk about this and make decisions based on what we need to do before the season even comes out, because we don't wait for this to say, oh, we think we need to be better here. We already have that plan, that thinking ahead of time. So again, you can look at that for each of our buildings. Across our district, our achievement is way lower than it should be. Again, in some places, we have to fight some of that research on what the public thinks, how kids learn, and we have to say, we don't believe that, and we know our kids can do it. And again, we've had those moments where we've had that, we need to magnify that. The growth score, and this across the district is always off the charts. So you can see growth for ELA and math for every building in the district. This is always and has been historically off the charts. So well above the state average in a lot of cases across all of our buildings and districts and the district. This growth is a little bit different than some other measures of growth. So this is what they call value added growth. So it's looking at if we have similar kids like the kids in this district or these schools, how do those kids typically grow? And then it looks at, okay, what did this school do with these students? How much they move them from below basic to basic, basic to proficient, proficient to advanced. And then that's where these calculations come from. So value added meaning, hey, this, if you have high scores here, means that our district or our schools add a lot more value than other schools or districts across the state would. And again, typically we're off the charts with it.
With the students who scored similar to what we did. So when they take each student and says, here's how they scored on these 3 tests. And then they match them up with students from other districts who scored the same. And then they say, how did they improve this year compared to that student? And so we're comparing ourselves. I mean, the honest truth is we're very low achievers, and we'll talk about that. But we're comparing ourselves to other low achievers and saying we're growing at a better rate than they are. So we're not comparing ourselves across the board to high achieving students. So again, the growth in my mind is a little misleading because achievement is what, again, in my personal opinion, is what matters. Because when kids get out of school here, they're not going to be asked, how is your district rated? They're going to be asked, what's your achievement? And that's what they're going to get compared on to other students. But the growth, you have to understand, it's not comparing against all other students. It's comparing against a student just like you last year and how you compared with them. So it's good that we're better. I mean, it's a good thing. I don't want to denigrate it.
Yeah.
But
also,
it doesn't translate into achievement.
right, I understand that, but the growth also, in my mind, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have high achieving students, their growth is like 0. You know what I mean? So high achieving schools or districts, they're not growing because there's not a whole lot of room for them to grow. They're already up here. So, I mean, growth is good. I get the whole achievement thing, right? Because we're not where we want to be. But it's good to know, like you said, that, you know, so they can't compare us to higher achieving schools because they
compare at the student level first and then aggregate that up. So when they compare high achieving students, they're comparing them to other high achieving students.
Correct.
So we're
with the
in
growth part, because
right.
you can't have high achieving students with a lot of growth because there's a ceiling. I mean, right? I mean,
Right,
more or
right.
less, there's a ceiling.
No, well, it is, but like, for example, on the low end, a student might raise his score by 10 points, and that might, impact the growth. But you get the same credit on the high end if somebody just improved by 0.10. Because they're comparing apples to apples.
Yeah. And again, read that 50-page calculations, but yeah, again, essentially value added comparing us to kids that are, again, at those similar levels from us. How much do they grow with us? How much do they grow with someone else? And we do, again, if someone asks the community, we get those kids to move. We talk a lot about, though, when staff ask me, hey, do we want to go for like growth or achievement, Adam? Or, hey, I'm really excited about this growth. I celebrate that for that moment, but then I also say, what we really want is that achievement. If we focus on achievement, growth takes care of itself, kind of like Vicki was saying. Kind of touching on that too, again, is we've had those pockets of excellence where we've flipped the script, and this is something I just share with our principals again, of we had maybe kids that proficiency, so I'm not talking about growth, I'm talking about proficiency gains of maybe one year they were at 18% and we grew them to 38%. So a 20% jump in achievement. Think about the growth scores there. I mean, those are off the charts, but we've achieved in gradables by 20%. So that's where I firmly believe there's nothing wrong with our students. When we do the right things, our students make those huge jumps like that. So we just want to, again, stack those year to year, grade to grade. And then we'll start to see that problem, Vicki, of I'll come up and talk to you and say, our report card scores are going down because the state thinks because we have a high poverty rate, our kids should grow more than they achieve. Well, now our scores are going down because we have high achievement and our growth isn't as good because we don't have as much to grow anymore. So we'll deal with that when that becomes a problem. So the target group, go ahead.
No, I just said that'd be a good problem to have.
Yeah, so that's what I would love to be able to, yep, and that's where we'll be, and that's what we're working towards. So this was a new one last year, this target group outcomes. So they look at your bottom quartile, so your bottom 25% of learners for math and ELA for the last 3 years. And they're looking at basically how did those students do in your buildings and in your district. This is kind of like a mini report card of all in itself in the big report card. So I like to look at this and say, okay, what was the achievement score for these kids, which we already know by design, this group is our lowest achieving kids. And I compare it to this overall. Well, I already know that's going to be lower because they're pulling out those lowest achieving students for this calculation. Then I like to look at this growth and see, okay, even though they're our lowest achieving, how do they compare to the building? Are they still growing at that same rate? And that's kind of unusual to see, but you'll see that across all of our report cards, that we get this group of students to grow, just like we get other students in the building to grow. Again, not good enough just growth. We want the whole thing. We want that achievement. And that's, kind of that mindset shift that we're trying to have with our adult behaviors, to shift to that thinking. And then also, again, looking at these rates for our bottom quartile students, comparing it to these rates. And again, typically everything is on par. So some buildings, some districts have it where these kids aren't achieving, they're not growing, they're not showing up to school, and they're not graduating. We don't have that problem. Again, the achievements there, they by design have already pulled out those kids are our lowest achieving students. So, but again, we want to see that go up, which will cause that to go up. And so sometimes I get the question too of, Adam, what students should we focus on to change these numbers? And my response is we focus on every kid in our district because all our kids deserve that. Some districts or schools might play that game of let's focus on those bubble kids that are about to make a jump and let's get them to learn. Or let's focus on this bottom 25% because that will help our report card numbers. We don't play that game. We want to help all groups of students and have supports in place to do that. But again, that mind shift, and there's definitely more we can do and things that we're excited about, and we can start talking about that continuous improvement plan, which will help guide some of that work. So one last thing I'll throw at you that you can kind of look on your own, but if you scroll up a little bit here, scroll down. Yeah, so if you freeze right there, this is a really good page, or these are good pages for context. And this kind of gives us that, hey, how do we compare for each of those 4 areas compared to the rest of the state? So achievement was one of those priority areas. And this chart is a really good one to look at, which they have on these breakdown pages in the report card. So our achievement, you can see here, this school, which is our high school, is at the same or higher score than only 13% of other 9-12 schools. So it's comparing our high school to all the other 9-12 schools in the state. I turn that into percentile and say we're at the 13th percentile. 50th percentile is average. 13th percentile is not good. And our kids don't deserve that. Our kids are better than that. So again, we didn't need this to tell us that. If you go, and I'll just kind of show you this too, if you go a little bit further, you go to those growth pages. You can just keep going up, just to the growth here. And it gets more information. Again, you can definitely dig into these and spend a lot of time. Here's the growth. So is that growth score? What does that 75.5 mean? Well, this is telling you that our high school grows students higher than almost 75% of other high schools across the state. So again, 75th percentile, well above the state average. You could argue that's kind of in that, advanced type, elite type wording. Typically, again, besides the achievement, we have the percentiles across our district in like the 80th percentile, 86th percentile for growth or that target number or for that graduation rate. So those would be good ones I'd encourage you to look at too, just to get that context of what does that mean? Because sometimes, again, you can see a number and not know. So I think this helps put that in context. So there's so much more here. I've probably taken too much time already, but you have access to all those. I could definitely sit down and chat with you more. But yeah, the biggest thing kind of that we said already is just making that shift to growth is great. We'll get growth if we focus on achievement and focus on giving kids those grade level opportunities. And there's tons of research that supports that, even though sometimes people don't believe that, but that's some of the research we're putting in front of our teachers that our kids can do it with the right pieces in place.
So with that, I ask this every year. So we know, right, our achievement, and so I'm gonna be kind of brutal. So our growth is always good, right? Our achievement is not. So, and we have a plan, right? So we have a plan as to how are we bringing our achievement up and so on and so forth. So how long do we give that plan? And I don't know, can you share just basic parameters of, yep, this is working, no, it's not, and how do you decide that?
Sure.
Were you gonna jump in? or-
No, go ahead first and I'll follow
Yeah,
you, right? Yeah.
So those are things, again, our plan is kind of, when we get to December, we'll be able to kind of talk more about that plan specifically. But, I think if you look across the state, as I've talked to my colleagues too, I don't think many people are focusing on achievement, even those schools that say have as good of achievement as we do, they flatline. And we're sitting at 30-40% achievement when our kids across the state are so much better than that too. So what I kind of see as happen in our district is, again, we're helpers. Teachers are helpers by nature, right? And we don't want to see our kids fail. And sometimes then we take the learning down to the level of our students, and then that can cause really great growth, but it can cause achievement to not go anywhere. And that's happening not just here, that's happening at districts where they have higher achievement than us. If you look historically, there's not much movement because of that. So one of the pieces, again, that's something that we've been talking about and starting to have teachers wrap their heads around would be the idea of how do we make that mind shift from, okay, my kids aren't ready to learn this, because all these test scores are based on grade level standards, it doesn't kind of build them up to grade level. It starts right away at grade level work. So how do we switch that mindset that, hey, my students aren't ready for this, to the adult behavior of, you know what, I have to get ready to give those supports or scaffolds so that they can be in grade level work and productively struggle or have successes that then they grow more from that. And that's kind of that research I talked. There's tons of research that says even if you put kids 2-4 grade levels above where they are, that's better off for them than going down to where they're currently at, and they never, again, kind of think of it as if they never have a chance to be in grade level learning, and you give them a test on their grade level, and that's the first time they're getting to practice that, they're probably not going to do very well. So I think that's what's happening, not only in our district, but across the state. I think we're sometimes, just that shift of, let's start thinking about achievement, and let's make sure we're getting kids in that grade level content with the right supports in place.
I'm just going to add a little bit to this. So I think, yes, and we have to, really dig into this data, and drill down to what are those specifics that in ELA, math, and find out whatever those specifics are, if it's knowledge and understanding in an ELA class, and double down, specifically get more laser-like in some of those areas. I think we're starting to see FLC starting to use specific instructional practices within their classroom. You're going to start seeing some major achievement lift, and they've got the right tools to start assessing that and measuring that. What we need to do is get everybody on that same kind of page. So it's not so first of all, drilling down, find the root causes, focus on one of those root causes and just double down in those areas to see some growth in those specific areas and just see those little specifics within that achievement. But at the same time, then universally, how are we instructing in the classroom? And a lot of people are doing a lot of different things, and there's some really good stuff, but also some stuff that's not research-based that's really going to change that achievement score. And so we got to get more players on that frame of what's the right lure to actually catch the fish. And there's a lot of different lures that are going out there, but not half of them are working as best as we possibly can. And I think the other thing too is we have to strategically get our teachers working together in a way that they're supported and they're able to look at student data regularly on the weekly, saying, okay, here's the summative or here's the assessment we just gave. How does that correlate to what we're trying to work with as doubling down in that specific area, that laser-like area? And then what are we doing differently to change that up or get better? Or, wow, you did this really well. We had to do the same kind of thing in our classrooms as well. So it's going to be asking time. 3 to 5 years is going to be kind of the process. I hate to say it that way, but if you look at the data, he's telling you it's a 3 to 5 year compilation on this. But I would say, like, to be fair and to get our people up to that speed to where they need to be, you're going to start seeing that after 3 or 5 years. Now, will you see some heavier, faster growth in the next couple of years? Absolutely. You'll see some changes within that. But at the time being, I say 3 to 5 years in terms of a process for this.
Yeah, I think that, I think you're right, it's gonna take time. But, I pulled the data down, and I think I shared it with pretty much everybody. Over the last 6 years, so I went back to 2015, 16, over the last 6 years, our achievement scores have not improved. Meaning it's not we're in the 13% at the district level, we're in the 5 to 10%. We're in the bottom, and we've been there for at least 6 years, I'm guessing, longer than that. And we've had I've heard these same conversations about we're gonna do this and this and this, but nothing has happened in 6 years. And it's disheartening, and it's not gonna be a flip a switch, but until you have the conversations that you're talking about what's the actual problem here. If you go I went through and compared just a bunch of different ways, but if you look at the math scores from building to building, the below basic number starts out at FLC this last year at 26%. When they get to BAMS, it's 45% below basic. When they get to Horace Mann, it's 52% below basic. And it's been like that every year. The percent below basic starts out at a certain number at FLC, gets worse at BAMS, it gets worse at Horace Mann. So there has to be some discussion. I don't know what the answer is. That's your guys' area of expertise. But somebody's got to start digging into this number and say, why are these buildings so different? And then you compare us to the districts around us, and we're horrible compared to the districts around us. And like you said, I don't think our kids are any worse than any of the districts around us. And the staff that I've been exposed to is all cares and seems like we have a good staff. So somehow, over the last 6 years at least, we haven't been addressing the right problem. And so that's, my biggest concern is understanding how you're going to approach this to find out. We can't fix it unless we understand what the problem is. And we haven't fixed it for 6 years, and the numbers are just continuing to be bad.
Lauren, I hate to put you on the spot. Like, what are you guys looking specifically at in like math? Like when you look at, like you're drilling down, you're looking at the data, maybe even ELA for that matter, but when you, as your team at FLC, and this is pretty new, this isn't like stuff you're doing for 6 years.
Focusing, I can speak more to ELA and just really looking at like foundational reading skills, especially in the area of phonics. So that's been one point that I think we've identified as far as like an area of priority for sure.
I was going to add to that too, like that, those are those common themes when I talk about those pockets of excellence we've had. It tends to be with our teachers that are skill focused. When I think about, okay, what did this team do? Or when I talk to those teams, how did you do this? It's, knowing what skills, what are those essential skills kids need to have, and being able then to give kids those skills. So that's where, again, trying to magnify that on a obviously a bigger scale. So.
Well, then, to your point before, identifying some leading indicators, I think is key, so you can take corrective action in a timely manner.
Yeah.
And I was a little concerned, and Lauren, I know you're brand new to the role, but we were sharing these Lexia scores from last year during the board meetings we've got every month on where we were. At the end of the year, Lexia was telling us 32% of the kids were within grade level, 44% were above. So that was saying 76% of the kids were at or above grade level. When we get the state test back, and it's 72% are below grade level. So now I'm not blaming Lexia, but I'm saying the numbers that are shown to us don't jive. And if you want, I was hoping they would, so that we could use Lexia as a leading indicator on telling us we've got issues and we can address them. But what we were told at the end of last year and what we saw in these test scores, they're not even close.
Well, and that's the thing too, when you start to talk like data literacy or assessment literacy, every assessment is what it is. It's typically what I say. So like an Lexia assessment, kids sitting down on a computer, Whereas then you flip to like a state assessments, typically it's multiple choice, multiple answer, small, or excuse me, short writing answers, long right answers. So, that Lexia piece is kind of identifying those kind of a different set of skills, the foundational skills, whereas a state assessment is addressing those gradable skills in the standards for those grades. So that's where, again, sometimes, what I've noticed with our data is when we see trends in our data, we see that across all the different forms of assessment. So we saw trends in, say, ELA data in STAR. We then saw that same trend in state assessment data, because sometimes those data points might not match up perfectly because just the nature of the assessment, and sometimes it's assessing different things. So, yeah, that Lexia is one. Yeah, I mean that again, they might have those skills, or those skills might have been at a higher level, but then again, not all those skills are the same skills on, say, the Ford exam, which if you're trying to compare those two, can be a little bit, kind of like, what's going on here? Why isn't this matching up?
And that's a triangulation too. Like, okay, here's what we're measuring from. If it's the state, if it's, our assessments within, if it's our, competencies, we need to explain what those are and how they all relate, and then be able to, really prioritize, like what you're saying too, Vicki, is like, how are we measuring this now? So people can have a clear understanding, like, here are the pockets, what we're trying to do, these are the actions happening, and this is what's telling us what's happening with those. So again, this is why strategic planning is so important to you, and having continuous improvement plans, so you can like put this down and like lock it in so that people know, everybody knows kind of the direction, and we're all running down that same path, not a whole bunch of different directions, because you're not going to get anything done if you don't come together as that team. And that consistency has to follow from not only elementary, but the middle to the high school. And we got to look at that. And that's why we're doing the work we're doing. And this is the current state. Gosh, the only thing we can do is get better. And we're going to do that. So I'm confident we got a team of people that are going to make that happen. And but it's going to take some time. It's going to take some work, and it's going to take some real foundational things that are going to build upon this. So.
Well, that's why I think it's important to let everybody know where we stand right now.
Right.
Because you're starting, this is what you inherited, and let's all understand the position you're starting from, and then we can start to see the progress from there. One last thing, and can we get a list of what standardized tests are given, who they're given to, when they're given, and then when the results are available?
Sure, for sure. Yep. And one last thing just to note, because our charter school has a report card, so if you just slide this up to their score. So the last couple of years, if you don't have enough years worth of data, you go on this alternate rating system, which is typical for newer schools. So this was the first year Treffert Way had a report card. The one thing I wanted to note, and I put it in here too, is it's incomplete data because they don't have enough years. So those 4 priority areas you saw, they don't have any scores for the target area because they don't have enough years worth of data. Part of that was because we missed a year with COVID. And then some of the other pieces, they only have 2 years worth of data as opposed to 3 years, which is typical of other report cards. So, so again, just as you kind of see that, make note of that. They'll have more of a true report card next year.
I just want to finalize. I mean, we got really good people doing some really good things. And, and I think obviously data doesn't have a heartbeat, but it, shows us some things that we have to be aware of, and it points out these things. And yet at the same time, how do we grow together? And I think that's the full message here. And we've got to be ready and willing to grow, and say like, okay, this is where we're at and how do we get better? But again, I'm going to reference back. We got amazing people on this team. And I think they're eager. And again, it's just about how do we support them and support everybody in this process to get the work done. And so that's our ultimate goal with this. And we'll do it. It's just, bring everybody together and making that happen. Because again, these people are amazing people that are coming in every single day, working with our kids, making it happen. It's just, giving the right tools and support along the way with it. Fully confident.
Yeah, we've been talking about what we can do inside the walls here. How do we address all the factors that affect our kids' lives, affect their interest in learning, their ability to learn outside of the
That's a great segue with Carrie. We're gonna go right into that. How can we move on to the next one? Is that
Right.
okay?
Well, my point being, though, that, you can do great stuff inside the walls. There's some stuff that we can't control, and I'm not using that as an excuse.
Yeah.
But that's part of the process.
Yeah, and I think we gotta understand too, as individuals and human beings too, that we can control what we can control within our region, like you just said. And if we recognize that and we do the best we possibly can with what we have and what our controllables are, then that's what we can do. And obviously, we're gonna give it, 115% on each one of our kids, no matter where they're coming from or whatever and we realize, predict the predictable. You have these elements that they're dealing with that some of us have never even fathomed in our worlds or can't even imagine what, lives they're going through. But also recognizing that and making sure that we understand that full story and then giving them supports and leaning in and helping each one of those kids and recognizing that. It was just like the same presentation we had a few minutes ago with the students representing the SEL world. There are some really amazing things that are happening side by side with the academic achievement world that wasn't happening, 15, 20 years ago in the public education arena. And now we're making that priority, which I think is so essential to get our kids to that next level after school too, because then they'll have that element of like, I feel like I am, I belong and I have the power to do those things and control what I can control within our realm. It's a fair question, very fair.
So I'm excited to see the next few years because I'm gonna be honest, I've heard this for the last 9 years.
Yeah.
And so, and I love everybody and I think everybody's gonna do awesome and great, but it's time we really put our money where our mouth is and get that achievement. And like you said, I don't expect it to be next month that all of a sudden all of this is happening, but I'm excited because I feel like we have an above, down, inside out kind of plan, which I think is maybe what we were lacking before or so.
I'll just say one more quick thing, and I promise I won't get into it anymore. But it starts by being honest with ourselves, right, and admitting there's a problem. And there's extenuating circumstances. And the one I've heard, not from Steve, but from other people is, we have a high percent of economically disadvantaged kids. We do, 52%, something like that. But there are 83 districts who have that many economically disadvantaged kids or more. Out of that 83 in math, we rank 73rd. And we're in that group, we're the ones least economically disadvantaged because everybody else is more than we are. So there's 82 more than we are. So if you throw us in there, that's 83. And in math, we rank 73rd. So there are other reasons, but we have to identify them and then figure out how to address them. These other districts have figured out how to do it. And like you say, I think we've got a great staff and I think we've got great kids. So we have to start by being honest and admitting there's a problem and finding out what the cause of that is and then building the plans to fix it. But to ignore it, we're going to be right where we were 6 years ago, which is where we are today.
Right. And putting the systems into play to make it happen. And that's what we've been talking about, and it's time to do the work. Super excited.
All right, then move to number 3, the mental health update presented by Carrie Nix. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Muir, do you want to scroll to?
Yes. Am I going right here?
Yeah.
All right, perfect.
So I hope you had an opportunity to read through this. I'll just highlight a few things. But before I highlight a few things in here, since we're segueing from the academic and what we're doing with students who, we can't control everything that goes on with the students. But something that we do focus on in all 3 of our schools is that social emotional learning piece, like the students at FLC shared. So we have 7 mindsets at FLC. Which is a social emotional learning curriculum, and then at the high school as well. And then at the middle school, we have Character Strong. But what the really cool thing is that we're doing this year is we have an SEL coach that we use some grant dollars to come in to really evaluate the fidelity of the delivery not only of that curriculum, but also to determine, is that curriculum actually meeting the needs of our students, which is something we've never done before. So hopefully, we'll learn from there. And we know, research tells us that when we have students who, or people in general, who have stronger social emotional learning skills, that they perform better academically, professionally, and socially. So hopefully, we'll learn something this year from the work that that's being done with that. But going back to my mental health report that I put together here. So some of you may or may not know that Oriole Nation Heals began from a school-based mental health grant through the Department of Public Instruction that the School District of North Fond du Lac was awarded in 2019. We were again awarded that same grant for the 2021-22 and then this year 22-23 school year. So we've been able to expand quite significantly over that period of time, like I indicated in this report. And actually, as of today, so I had in there as of October 31st, 2022, 118 students have been referred. We have actually now surpassed all the years previous to us, and we are at 132 students at that, or at least for the first 2 years that we started, surpassed the total that have been referred. And I know Mr. Matthew, you had sent some questions, and so I'll address those while I'm doing this presentation. So one of the questions he asked is, why do I think that there's an increase in this? And that I can't pinpoint why there's been an increase in people needing services, but I think there's a couple factors that might play into it. One, that we have the access to services, right? So before, we didn't have the access to services, so we didn't really know or weren't necessarily tracking that. And now that we do, because of those increased services, people are reaching out. I also think that we are doing a better job when we're addressing or talking with students and their families about absenteeism, about behavioral issues, maybe nurse visits, kind of getting to the root cause of some of those, which could be some mental health related issues. And so when we're having those discussions, then the idea of these services come up and that we have to offer at the school. So I think that can be an increase as well. And then also, I think the stigma is kind of being reduced a little bit, and it's a little bit more normal to talk about it, or we're normalizing it a little bit more, so people aren't as afraid to come forward and indicate that maybe they are struggling, they might need some extra services. So that's my take on why I think that we have an increase in services. But another question that was asked was, how are students identified for services? So those general conversations that we're having based on those indicators that I had shared, and then also our SST team meetings, which is student support team meetings. We talk about students who might be struggling in those areas, and then we identify those students as well. We also do some screening of our students. So we have the Y screen come in and screen our 9th graders. And from that, we do get students who then are flagged, and then they're referred to me for services as well. And then at the elementary level, we do the Spence anxiety screener. At the middle school and high school level, we also do what's called the SDQ, the Strengths and Difficulties questionnaire. That is self-administered or self-answered. So students, they're actually answering those questions versus a teacher answering those questions on their observations of the students. And so we get students identified out of that. Then staff members come to us, or the counselors with concerns about students, and then they'll be referred to me, and then I reach out to the families to get them connected. So that's kind of how students are identified as in need of services. So some research-based tools are being used, and then also just as we know as professionals working in this field when we see students who might be struggling. If you scroll down a little bit more, it shows just the breakdown of the students who are referred, who are engaged in services. And I noted above that we had an increased engagement in services, and that is really due to the amount of therapists that we're able to have come into the building. And so when we started, it was one therapist from each place, and now we have Dowell Associates has 4 therapists that come into our school, which is an additional therapist than what we had last year. So we were able to get some of those kids off that waiting list and get more engagement. And then Rawhide has the 2 therapists that come in. We're still looking to expand even more because we still have a wait list. as you can see in those numbers. Unfortunately, we're not the only one who has a wait list. A lot of the behavioral health services providers are seeing an increase in services, and so getting other providers to come on board when they're already full is a little bit challenging right now. So, all three schools, well, the elementary, middle school, and high school, all consistently have about the same number of referrals. So it's not like one school having more referrals than others. It's kind of consistent. Trefford, I feel like Trefford is not as adequately represented here because it shows there's only 3 referrals, but the students at Trefford are typically connected to a multitude of services. And so this probably isn't accurate because they might have outside providers that we're not aware of or that aren't tracked through the school-based mental health services. Any questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
So first off, thank you for doing this. Number 2 is really just around, so we're doing a great job taking care of our students, but do we provide resources to the families then to help with, whether help create the environment that they're learning, right? To help with whatever concern they have. Are we providing resources to parents or families after?
So I typically, when I meet with families and I know that there's some other issues going on within the home, I try to refer them out to more wraparound services provided through the county should they be eligible for those, or talk about what other resources are available, because we do recognize that sometimes families need that assistance, whether it's, parenting, whether it's financial assistance, food, things like that. So we do offer, or at least explain to them what other services are available. And then I myself will refer them on to the county and make that referral. Any other questions?
Okay, well, thank you very much, Karen. Appreciate that.
Again, we're very lucky to have individuals like Carrie and other players, like, coming from other districts, it's not the norm, and bring 4 therapists in, like, that's just amazing. That's hard to do. So we're fortunate to have the resources that we do. And again, just looking at the wins that are going on, it's pretty amazing. But her passion for this, like just getting to know her in these few months has been extraordinary. And I just, thank you too, just for all your work and where we're going to. So exciting to be. Yeah.
The numbers are impressive.
Thank you. Item 4 is strategic plan.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to fly through these things pretty quickly. Strategic planning begins December 21st. We are taking roughly around 20 different staff members to CISA 6. And there are 5 different days that we're going to be working with CISA 6. Ted Knightsky is facilitating the process. And in that process, we're going to start putting together our strategic plan together as a school, our school district. We have members from FLC, Trefford, we have members from BAMS, we have members from Horace Mann, staff members involved in this. And we're going to really start looking at, data, looking where we're at and where we need to go, starting to put the measurements together so that we have some, tools that will help us and assist us moving forward, as we've been talking about here for a while. I'm super geeked out for this, being able to walk through this with everybody. It is going to take some time and resources. We're pulling people out of the school building for 5 days. However, in the long run, I think this is such a big opportunity and tool for our district to move us forward. So I think, yes, it is a little bit of a cost during those times, but looking down the line, this is going to be great for North Fond du Lac School District. So more to come. I'll update you all after we start that process, so you can hear kind of like what's going on. Each day is a little bit different as far as like what we focus on, and I can send out an agenda too for you a little bit to see and show you what's going on within those arenas too. So that goes from 9 till 3 on each of those days, where they're full commitments from all of our staff members who are part of that. Any questions about the superintendent's review? The strategic planning update. Okay. Update on the superintendent's review. Remember we met with Dave's, and a little while ago we had that special meeting where we talked about evaluation for myself. The date that was selected was in January, so we'll put a special meeting together so we can sit down and just talk closed session first and then review, a larger session. So just plan on something in January where we'll be putting that together so you guys can have that opportunity to hear kind of what's going on from my lens, and you guys can share out what you're seeing too as well. So that'll be the first part of the process within the review within that area. Any questions on that? All right, Jaden and Jones, we talk about mental health and we talk about the focus on students and families as we're bringing up here. It's also very, very important, extremely important that our staff is in a good place and that they feel like they have the well-being to be here and being able to work with our kids on the regular. And that starts honestly with our leadership. And so we looked into bringing in a team of individuals to start working on not only the understanding aspect of who we are as leaders, but also to get ourselves in a place where we're best and we can be the best version of ourselves to act appropriately in an intentional manner with every interaction that we're part of. And so not only is this doing the mental health component, but it's also building the culture for the district. And many times people talk about like, well, how do you see culture? What does that look like? This is our next step in terms of like actually looking at measurable action of how we are engaged or behaving with other people on the regular. So we see what kind of experiences we're kicking out. So the work from Jada and Jones, they're building that within the leadership that we're part of, focusing on who we are as individuals, but also then what kind of behaviors do we bring every single day to our job and modeling in an influenced way to our people that we're interacting with. Everything from our staff to our students to our community members, it all pays big dividends if we're not intentionally sound. I've known Lucas Jaden for quite some time. He was a teacher in the Appleton area school district. And while he was doing his teaching and his studies, he became part of a program called Train to Be Clutch. Train to Be Clutch was run by an individual by the name of Joshua Metcalf. He's out from California. He wrote a book called Chop Wood, Carry Water. Please, if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's great. It's an amazing, amazing work. But then Lucas started training with him and started being part of his organization and business. And it's all about mental training. How do you approach situations? How do you interact with other individuals? And then since then, Lucas has written 2 books and then actually disbanded from Joshua Metcalf and started his own company, Jaden Jones. Jones, you might know him. He was the former football coach of the Kimberly High School, traditional, like, how many years of phenomenal playoffs and state championships. Steve Jones is a phenomenal guy, but he also, in Kimberly High School, he taught a complete leadership course for all students within that frame. Lucas Jaden still teaches in Appleton in an online schooling opportunity. That's called, basically it's Mindset Mastery. And so he teaches out of one of his book, which is called Win in the Dark. So he's bringing some of that to our leadership. It's very profound and it builds the leaders first off. And then we're going to be moving from leaders to staff, which are also leaders, then staff to students, then students to students, and then down to our community as well. So this is a progression of work that we're going to be going on, and that's the start of the journey within the culture arena. I just want to bring that up so you know who that we're talking about when we talk about Jaden and Jones when they come forward. Also helping out greatly with their mental health for staff, students, and staff members too. Any questions about that? All right, panorama. In the past, the district has used Gallup to kind of like see where we all stood as far as like how leadership is doing, how staff members are doing, maybe even how, our families are feeling. And I know it sounded like from basically what I know so far, it was mainly just review of like leadership and where they were at. We want to get in more of an engagement of understanding of like not only our leadership, but also, where our students feel they're at and where they're, as far as a sense of belonging to the school, but also our families and our community members. And I think it's so important to have all those players involved and listening to their feedback and input. And I think this survey really aligns with exactly what Carrie was talking about. And we've sat down with our AMI team and our mental health teams and really explored this and said, how could this be beneficial for, number one, our students, but then our staff members, and then our community in the long run. So not only are we getting like data back, qualitative data about how we're kind of doing, but it's then aligning into the mental health, social emotional learning segues, and it's also then giving us feedback from the community itself. So this has been, Panorama's a nationally known survey. They have over like 40,000 school districts across the country, so their data is normed within that region too. We have the ability, as you may or may not have looked at all the pages of opportunity there, to really siphon down like what do we want to ask our families, what do we want to ask our staff, what do we want to ask our students, and then with our students specifically, we can see every single student and how they answered each one of those surveys, and we can tell like, are they struggling? Are they struggling with academics? How do they learn best? What is the social emotional levels of them right now currently? So you can really drill down. A lot of data again. Who's going to be responsible for this? And the hope is eventually helping people understand how to use the tool. And what I'm talking about is not only district leadership, but also staff members. If I recognize that this is going on, my 30 kids in my classroom or 20 kids in my classroom, and I know a little bit about and I'm checking that data on the regular, on the weekly, then I can better help them in their process when they're walking through achievement and other lenses, and as well as like mental health, social emotional learning. So it's a real great tool, but it's gonna take time to actually execute to the degree that it is. Because there is a lot of data, and we gotta get, number one, our leadership on board, then our staff, and then our students, so they understand how it works too, they can better help themselves. Any questions about Panorama?
I love it. It's the approach, it's great.
Yeah, no, I looked through it, and it looked great, and, you know, I got, Matt, I know what you're saying. You know, I love the concept, we just have to be committed to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, in my past life, there were so many program of the day kind of things that people just go, oh, we didn't like Gallup, now we're gonna try this, you know.
Yeah.
But this looks like it's so much better than any of the data you get out of Gallup, that as long as we're committed to it, I'm 100% behind it.
Yeah, and like anything, like any kind of data, we gotta look at it, and you know, if we assess like 3 times a year or 2 times a year, we have to be committed as a district to say like, okay, what are we seeing, and what are some small steps we can make in some of those areas to better help our kids, our staff members, our community. And it's not huge steps, or sometimes it's a really low-hanging fruit that will change the game for so much, and just being listened to. And I think those kind of surveys and those kind of data will help us find that a lot quicker, and then we can make some quicker moves. But there might be also some other things that might take us 3 to 5 years down the line with some of those things. But I'm super excited about it and what it can bring for us, and look forward to getting to work with that arena too. So it all works together. These things all dovetail really well, from the Panorama to the Jaden to strategic planning with the academic focus. It's all working in tandem so that we can get to that next level. Any questions about Panorama? Anything else? All right, future board agenda items for December. We're talking about the calendar. We're gonna bring that to you, or at least a first go at it. We've had a really good squad coming together the last couple of months just talking about it. We brought teachers and some other staff members, district leaders, to say like, what does this look like? And is what we have right now the best for us, or is there some other things we could do differently that can, you know, make it the best for our whole district? So really excited about that. We kicked out a survey to our staff a couple of weeks ago. We took some of that feedback. We are putting together some rough drafts of that, and hopefully we'll have an option for you, or at least something to look at on December, so you can take a look and say like, okay, that makes sense, or ask some questions. But we're really excited about that too. So that's coming up. Administrative contracts are coming right around the corner there, so we'll be talking about it a little bit. Holiday concerts, and that might even be a little post what has happened at the concert. So we'll be kind of just reflecting on all of many that are out there. Please take a look at our website. There are a ton of concerts in December. If you can get to as many as you can, that's great. I look forward to that and seeing everybody. And then board candidate signature period starting December 1st. And the earliest date of that circulation nomination paper starts that day. So that is happening too currently. So just everybody's aware of that. We'll be talking more about that. update. Oh, we sat down with our policies person, Neolo, and just like started looking through all that. What I'd like to do prior to the next meeting, if we can get that policy committee, I know Vicky and Terry, you guys were on it. If anybody wants to, I think can be part of that, but it'd be like an hour before that meeting so that we can sit down and review the reviews that they're asking us to go through and just talk about what's coming up next. So that when we get to the bigger group meeting, we can just run through those pretty quickly and just move through the board meeting a little faster too as well.
One thing I think I mentioned to Rick, but I'd like to have the policy committee review and possibly revamp the citizen input policy. When we switched to Neola, it changed, and I don't know if it was fully understood some of the changes, but I'd like it to be more like we had when we managed our policies locally, in which citizens were more able to speak, I guess. The way and then the one in particular is that you have to speak to an agenda item, but what we had before is a citizen input, which was for things not on the agenda. If they wanted to speak to agenda item, they could do that during that time when recognized. But and there's rules, of course, like we have now about what you can talk about, no personnel issues,
Sure,
things like that. But just kind of make that more citizen friendly.
Okay.
Than because technically, if I was to follow it, you could almost tell just about anybody who started to talk about something that it wasn't proper according to the policy. So I think we can look at that. I know the WASB has some stuff on that. They had a seminar or webinar recently, which I haven't had a chance to get to yet, but that can be downloaded too and looked into. So, and I'll talk to you more about that or get more stuff on that.
Great. All right, so that's the updates.
So I'm sorry, did you say like we're doing this an hour before our next meeting?
Yes, we can do that. That's what we were planning on doing. So like 6 o'clock
So the meeting's on the 19th.
on the 19th, correct? Yeah.
And that would, well, we can worry about that. That would have to be noticed separately then as a committee of the board meeting.
Right. Right.
All right. And on there, moving on to item O, new business. First item is to discuss and consider educator resignation from closed session. We were presented with a situation which an educator is, well, I don't get into the details on that, but is resigning her position, and that what we need to do here is to approve the resignation. I don't know if you, I think we've covered.
Yeah, I think a resignation from FLC. Yeah.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the educator resignation.
I can make the motion.
Does the contract have to, or the motion have to include the name of the person contracted?
I don't think so, no.
We had it before, I don't think.
Yeah,
We can, if you want us to, we can do that too.
I think we're fine as it is. So.
I'll second.
And then, so there's no discussion, so the roll call?
Ackerman,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Hawk,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes, Jaeger.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 2, discuss and consider educator contract from closed session, and this would be the contract for the educator who's going to replace the educator who resigned, and I think this one we might be able to be a little bit more open on.
And we've had someone patiently waiting through all of our business, so. Haley, do you just want to introduce yourself quickly to the board? And
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Haley Rush. I'm in the 3rd grade classroom right now, student teaching under Amy Baumhart. I'm from Elmira, just 15 minutes south of here. I'm going to be graduating from UW Oshkosh in 2.5 weeks, so I'm very excited. Yeah. I don't know. I come from a small town, small family.
I've subbed before in the Wilmire District. I've been a paraeducator also in the Wilmire District. I worked at a daycare over in Oakfield, so I have a lot of experience working with kids and also coaching. So, yeah, so a little bit about myself. Any questions? Yeah, for me?
Grade school.
Yes, yeah.
Well, again, I'll entertain a motion to approve Haley's contract
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
and roll call.
Hanson,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes. Jaeger,
Yes.
Beckerman.
Yes.
Yes. Congratulations.
Welcome, Haley.
We signed it already, so you're on.
Yeah.
All right, number 3, discuss and consider consent agendas for future board meetings.
Yeah, one of the things we're reviewing with Rick and going through some of these things is just like how we can maybe speed up the meetings a little bit more. And so if we have several things like paying bills, approving minutes, all those things, there could be a single unified motion and just vote for that consent to say like we're moving forward with that one item. So just curious, more of a conversation right now that we can move forward on that in future time so that we could save a couple more minutes maybe for further discussions like what we were able to have tonight. So more or less just recommending that we implement that moving forward, that consent agenda.
When I see it from other districts or other bodies, it includes things like the payment of the bills and treasurer's report, approving minutes. What are there other things you envision would be part of that?
I think those are the big things. And if anything that, can really be done in a single where we don't have to take, numerous votes for that we all are on the same page for, I think that's what we'd be looking at specifically.
I think it's come up as a question, should we be doing this off and on a couple of times over the years? And I think one of the reasons why we just kept it the same was that it typically, we meet one night a month and it's 5-10 minutes, maybe a portion of the meeting, but I agree, there's never any discussion or like we can discuss something if we want, but and I think I mentioned before with the list of bills, we get this all ahead of time, and if we have a question on a certain bill, we can call Maria or yourself and that. So I would, I guess I see no detriment in doing it, and if we want to do that to keep streamlining the meetings, I'm in favor of that.
So can you give me an example of what this one motion is going to say? So.
Sarah, do you got more information?
So, thank you, I was
Yeah.
just kind of like waiting, because I don't want Steve to be misled. So, if you go to Oakville School District actually and go to their website and look at their board policies, and they utilize board docs, so they have their board agendas, their board minutes, and the policies kept on the board docs, and they actually do the consent of agendas as well. And so basically, it's any actual item. So that would be, yes, our bills payable, treasurer's report, meeting minutes, but anything under new business that needs to be approved on. You get the material ahead of time, so if there's any items that need to be discussed, please let me know because I have to remove them from the consent agendas. And then basically, it's make the motion to approve all consent agendas, and someone makes that motion, someone seconds it, and then it's all in favor.
You said it included the new business?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's why I didn't want you, Steve, to be misled.
Okay. No, I appreciate the clarification. I might be a little hesitant on that because some of the new business are things that we're here to discuss and learn about, I guess, and.
We can still do that, right?
Mhm.
Because I don't get
You just
both.
pull it out of that and say like, hey, I've got further questions that can't be answered before the board meeting. You pull it out and then that becomes again part of new business and we still have that opportunity to discuss.
And I'm assuming any like closed session that we have before would always be a separate piece. Like, because we wouldn't know the information unless you share it, like we share.
Right,
it, right?
unless we share it.
Yeah.
But basically, if you want to look at, sorry, Rick, if you want to think about it as an umbrella, that's what we're going to be basically voting for, is everything that's going to be underneath that umbrella. So it's going to be once someone has to make that motion, someone seconds it, and then it's all in favor.
And I'm assuming you guys are using your judgment before sending out the agenda, or if you know there's something that's gonna need discussion, we'll
Right.
pull that out.
Right.
And not have it be part of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's, again, the only hesitation is that we don't limit, I mean, over the years, we've been accused, I guess, at times of rubber stamping stuff, that it comes here and there's a 5-0 vote, and, you know, they don't know all the background of the discussion that's been going on or information we received, but I wouldn't want that to look even more like, you know, we just come here and approve.
And I think it's part of our operating process too, like, once that, or those items are kicked on by whoever, then eventually you and I are sitting down and saying like, where does this land? Is this under consent, or is this something we need to keep in new business so we can have some further conversations about based on the feeling we already had, but also where we're at.
And hopefully to your concern is that as things are developed here, we're having more meaningful discussions about different topics. So what I'm hoping for is it leaves us more time for discussions like we had tonight.
Yeah.
And Steve, I totally understand like that whole, I hope I'm not overstepping, but as far as like the rubber stamping, I get that, but then I also look at what is actually being published, and there isn't any notes really that is published of what is being said. It's, you know, that the one item that's being addressed, and then the person who motions it, who seconds it, and then your guys' you know, votes, which that would still show up if anybody would, you know, not vote altogether too. So I think like when you look at it as a voting piece, it's not realistically going to look any different, except for, you know, one person's gonna motion, one person's gonna second it for all the items.
Yeah, all the items in one
Yeah.
shot.
Instead of like.
I think it forces us to spend more time, right, prior, because if we want to address something that's off the grouping, then that's there, so I think it's a good thing. I think it plays against that, what you said then too, right?
Sure.
So.
And so then if there is somebody that, I mean, so I'll just use myself, if I don't agree with
Right.
something.
Then it gets put in the new business.
Can that be done at a meeting, or as we maybe discover, maybe we should be talking more about this, can we pull it out?
It has to be done prior, saying like, okay, I have more questions about that. That'll be from each of you to say like, I want to discuss this further, and then we just put that out there, because when you, basically the consent is just, it's all packaged. It's pre-packaged. When we get to it, it's like, okay, done, and then moving on to whatever we have to do within that new business then too. So if you had a question, or you don't feel like this is really an easy, let's just vote, or I need more information, then you need to let us know so we can put it on new business. And that's anybody from in here.
I don't want to create more work, so I don't know what the best way is, but how we're getting the information we really like, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to come back and then say, like, can we get those topics ahead before you put all that work into the agenda, and,
Sure.
you know what I mean? Like, if we had
Yeah.
it before, we could all commit to looking before and getting that.
Yeah, I
to you
can
before.
create like a rough draft agenda and then submit it to you all, and then if you look it over and.
Yeah, that way you're
Maybe go
not
that way.
putting all that work into it. So.
Yeah, or it could just be the regular agenda, but just before it gets posted to make it official, so we could review it. Then we can always pull it out. Well, I'm willing to give it a shot. We can always change if we find it's not working.
I mean, I like all of it, and I agree with almost all of it except the new business part of it, because sometimes I just feel like, even if we know what the topic is.
So could we just, if we listed them all, sorry, I'm caught on something, so bear with me. If we listed them all and you could see that, but we just voted once, how does it have to show on our agenda? Like, if we knew that's what we're gonna do, we're gonna vote once, but you see all topics, so that way we're knowing, like, if someone wanted to read the agenda, they're able to say,
Yeah.
oh, these are the topics that.
In the board docs, like Sarah was talking about, it says consent, and then it has all the things listed under consent. And that's, so anybody could see any of that.
We're just switching voting once instead of voting like today.
Yeah, 5 times.
6 times.
Yeah.
Does that help that or no?
I think it's,
I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know, it's new to me, I gotta
Sure.
think about it.
Yeah, that decision now.
So in other, instead of saying discuss and consider blah, 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 it would just say approve blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then it'd be all part of it.
See, we have more time for this kind of discussion, it'd be great.
That's fine. We'll figure it out. And if not, we'll change it.
Yeah.
And,
True.
yeah, or refine it, you know what's happening. All right, so any further discussion? Entertain a motion to approve using consent agendas for future board meetings.
So moved. I'll second it.
Further discussion and roll call.
Matthew,
Yes.
Geckerman,
Yes.
Hawk,
Yes.
Goldowski. Yes, Jaeger.
Yes.
Okay, item 4, discuss and consider early graduation requests.
So we had one student in the packet, right? Steve, I tried to follow up and I didn't have anything else. I don't know if you got anything else from anyone else for as far as the why or
Yeah,
intentionality, if that's been like this.
I didn't hear anything
So,
further.
well, Steve's question was like in the past, you'd said that, you know, the student would like explain like the why behind or give you
Yeah.
a little bit of a.
Sure, you know, early graduation has come up as a topic off and on, not again, a few times, I don't want to overstate it, but 2 years ago, we did, the high school people came with a plan, we kind of hashed out the different restrictions and rules of it and what needed to be done. And then there's, you know, the different approvals that you saw on the, you know, by the guidance counselor and the student, the principal, and then the board, but well, and I could be wrong on this, I don't think I am, I couldn't find it, but one of the requirements was a statement by the student asking for the right to early graduation to explain why they felt it was important for them to do that and what their future plans were. And that wasn't part of the packet, so I asked, was that missed, or was there some particular reason this student couldn't do that? You know, and I guess why it became important to me, it might sound a little, you know, petty, but, you know, when the board passes stuff and you debate it and you talk about it and you set the rules, I expect that they be followed all the time. And sometimes as time passes on, a year or 2 or 3, things start to slip and, so, you know, people don't necessarily maybe follow the rules. So, I mean, I'm sure tonight, this particular student, that whether she had the statement here or not, we're gonna approve her request for early graduation. And so I want to try to impede that or table that, but I guess I would ask that if that is part of the list of rules that we pass, that sometime in the near future, that she provides us with that statement.
The letter from her mother says she's going to college.
But since she wants to go to college, it doesn't really say anything. I looked at it a couple different times. It doesn't, and I'm assuming she will go to college. And that's usually the main reason they want to get a start on in order to work and earn money to go to college. Some of it's implied in the letter from the mother, but again, the student's supposed to do that, not the mother. You know, and I don't know, you know, if there's a particular situation with this student where she couldn't do that, or it wasn't easy for her, or able to do it. I don't know, but.
Steve, is there a process somewhere that you said that you got together with people prior? Is there anything written down anywhere that we have this information?
Yeah,
I don't know.
You know, Samantha, well, it's a side question, but she was here, she could probably ask that, or answer that question, but, yeah, we did have a document, and I'll keep looking for it.
Okay.
I found like 2 different early graduation files, but they were from way back, so, but yeah, I'm sure she has it, and it explains how all these signatures, it gives the rules too, about
No, I've seen it, I know what you're talking about.
in the ceremony and what they can do as
Sure.
you know, student, or no, not a student, a graduated student. So, you know, and I think again, it's just probably the bigger message is that we follow what the board takes the time to pass. And nothing against the young lady, I'm sure it's the best thing for her, but, and I won't say, let's table it all, we'll, I'll support it here when we get to that point, but I'd like to have that completed then by Heather, doing that. It doesn't have to be tomorrow, but
I emailed the counselor today, right after, and I haven't got anything back yet, so.
okay,
I'm waiting on that.
let us know.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion on this, or we got a motion to approve the early graduation request?
Yeah, I agree with you, Steve, that I'd like to see a statement from the student as well. And didn't usually the principal always kind of lend their support to the decision to enroll, so.
Yeah, if you see, they sign off on it, there's part of the sheet, in that prior meetings when the principals were attending, she would explain a little bit, give a little
Gotcha.
background about it and stuff like that, so. Again, it's the report realm of things, it's probably not the most important thing in the world, but I think we should.
She'd always talk during the meeting about this game as well.
And maybe, and that's something I'm learning too, so like just understanding process, if it's, Samantha coming in, sharing just a couple lines about what's going on, and then a written statement from the student, or if the student wants to be here, great, just I'll get some more clarification, and
all right,
I don't disagree with what you're saying.
And if she has a form or document that we approved, she could send a copy out to us, or if you could, so we have that, so, but I'll keep looking for it too.
Great.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the early graduation requests of, we've had the name in before, Martha Martinez Lubanis. Anything else on discussion? All right, and then roll call.
Matthew,
Yes.
Geckerman,
Yes.
Hawk,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes, Jaeger.
Yes.
Item 5, discuss future options of topics.
We can move forward. No more future options tonight.
All right, and then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Kowalski, yes, Matthew,
Yes.
Hawk,
Yes.
Jaeger,
Yes.
Geckerman.
Yes.
Motion adjourned at 9:03. All right, thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we could go. All right, you're welcome.
Good night, Oriole Nation.
I checked in here a little bit ago.
Yeah.